So I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I see that we have some more people here, which is a great thing. I want to talk a little bit tonight about self-abuse and how our tendency as human beings to abuse ourselves affects how we are able to not only find happiness, but how we're able to hit that unfulfilled potential that I think all of us feel that we have, but that we don't easily access. So the one thing I want to start with first off and foremost is that there is absolutely hope in working on how you think and feel. There's absolutely, and let me just emphasize again before I get started here, feel free to ask any questions. The whole idea of these webinars that we're doing or that I'm doing is to have you be able to engage with how you're thinking and feeling without it ruminating in your mind and acting as if there's never going to be any hope to how I'm thinking and feeling. So feel free to jump in with any questions you may have. But I'm going to talk tonight briefly about how self-abuse, hating ourselves, beating ourselves up affects our ability to be happy. So we hear this a lot from people. We hear people saying all the time, "Oh, I hate myself. I'm always putting myself down. I'm my own worst enemy." Now, if you really stop and think about that, why are you your own worst enemy? Why are you treating yourself and talking to yourself in a manner that is actually impeding your ability to be successful? I don't know if people have ever really stopped and asked themselves, but where did I pick up this way that I relate to myself? And part of what I work with a lot of my clients on is helping them fine tune how they're thinking and feeling. So let's talk from the beginning about hope and the power of hope. People say, I hear this a lot from people, well, I'm not being negative, I'm being realistic. Let me just dispel one immediate myth that I see perpetrated throughout our society. Negativity is not the only reality. Being negative, being pessimistic, being down on yourself is not the only way to think and feel. In reality, there's nothing more destructive that we can do to ourselves than to be our own worst enemy. Think about this for a second. Let's say you have a kid or a best friend. Imagine if you talked to that kid the way you talk to yourself. Imagine if you treated your friend the way you talk to yourself. Imagine how that would affect them. That's actually called intrapersonal psychology. A lot of psychology works with the interpersonal, meaning the world around us, our friends, our relationships, the people around us. Interpersonal psychology is very important because it helps people know, hey, I'm interacting with my coworkers in a way that's causing them to hate me, or I'm interacting with my wife in a way that's making her not like me, or my husband, or my whatever. That's interpersonal. What I focus mainly on is intrapersonal psychology. What's intrapersonal? Your relationship with you. And that's what this is about tonight. What is your relationship with you like? Why does your relationship with you suck? I mean, I'm not trying to be harsh, but why is it that you beat yourself up and put yourself down the way you do? Have you ever asked yourself that? Anybody wants to jump in with an answer? Feel free. Why do I hate myself so much? Why do I put myself down? Why is it okay for me to treat myself in a way that I would never treat anybody else? And you know what a lot of it boils down to is conditioning. Conditioning, meaning what did I learn as a kid? How did I learn to treat myself this way? And I don't think a lot of people are asking themselves these basic questions about how they think and feel. We live in this culture, and if you heard my first two webinars, you know that I'm very much trying my best to help everyone who attends these to question this blank, I want you fill in the blank, mental health stigma, this idea that there's something wrong with working on how I think and feel. Think about friends of yours or yourself or you who go to the gym. You're proud of that. You're proud to go to the gym. You're proud to say, hey, I worked out, or I ran this 10K, or I did this, or whatever. Why aren't we proud to say that, hey, you know what I did last night? I took 45 minutes out of my night and I listened to a webinar, a live webinar about how I think and feel. Why aren't we proud of that? You know why? Because of judgment. We are afraid of being judged. So all I can say to everyone listening to this or watching this on YouTube, you should damn be proud of the fact that you are working on how you think and feel, okay? If we had a culture, a world where everybody was working on how they think and feel, imagine what we would have. will we have racism? Would we have people hating each other because of their party affiliation or their religious affiliation? Think about what conditioning is. This is how we get conditioned as a culture, as a human being. We get conditioned to believe that it's okay to hate myself. It's okay. No, it's okay. You know what? I'll just go on my day. I'll just go about my life 40, 50, 60, 70 years hating myself, regretting, hating myself for mistakes, hating myself for things I should have, could have, would have done. And we're going to talk about the whole idea of not shoulding on yourself. Shoulding, S-H-O-U-L-D, shoulding. We do that all the time. I should have. Why didn't I? Oh, if only I had hair. If only I had done this. We do this all the time, and that's a form of self-abuse. Think about it. If your daughter, son, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, if they needed you to help them, to talk to them about something, and you said, you should have talked to me about this a year ago, or you should have done this, how are they going to take that? Are they going to feel that you like them? Or are they going to feel that you love them? No, probably not, because they're going to feel as though you're abusing them. So we have a question coming in. Let me see what this is. Let's see here. Let me put these on. Right, exactly. And I'm going to just use first names here because that's okay. Christy asks, it's a learned behavior. Exactly, Christy. Exactly. It's a learned behavior. But you know what? We don't take time asking ourselves, why am I perpetuating a learned behavior? Why am I perpetuating a behavior or a way of thinking that I learned? Think about racism, for example. And I use this with my whoever, or if there are any of my clients looking at this, they'll know that I've used this all the time. Think about racism. Where are the racist babies? Where are the racist little kids? There are none. You know why? It takes adults, it takes society to come in and say, don't play with that black kid. Don't play with that white kid. Don't play with that Mexican kid. But you know what they're also none of? They're no born self-haters. There are no born kids beating themselves up until they're taught that. But again, we don't focus on that enough in our culture. We don't focus on how we relate to ourselves. We live in this world where, nah, it's okay to suffer. It's okay, I hate myself. That's just the way it is. I'll just focus on all the negative things. So another thing I like to ask people is think about this for a second before you answer. If you woke up tomorrow, okay, let's say you woke up tomorrow and the world was filled with people exactly like you are, exactly the way you are as a person, meaning your culture, I mean, not your culture, your values, how you treat other people. If the world was filled with people exactly like you are, would it be better or worse than it is today? Think about that for a second. Would it be better or worse? And that makes you aware of the fact that you're actually a pretty damn good person. But you know why? As Christy pointed out, it's learned behavior. We perpetuate this conditioned learned behavior without taking time to question that. So one of the main tools that I'm going to keep pushing that you're hearing all in our culture these days, which has been in Buddhist, and I'm not Buddhist, but I borrow a lot from different philosophies, is mindfulness. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is, again, thinking about my thinking. So let's apply that to racism. Let's say I'm a racist. I hate all green people, okay? But I don't like hating. I'm realizing more and more I don't want to be hateful. I don't want to be somebody who hates people. So I start questioning that. I start thinking, wait a minute, why do I believe this? And I start remembering, oh yeah, I remember I was told all green people suck. All green people suck. Is that okay with me? That's how mindfulness works. Now apply that to self-hate. Apply that to self-hate. What do you find? Wow, so the only reason I hate myself is because I was taught this? Maybe some of you listening to this right now were physically abused as kids, sexually abused, bullied. Bullying and being teased and picked on is one of the most destructive things. I know that personally. I was mercilessly teased and bullied in high school. I didn't even go to my own senior prom. Why? Because I was repeatedly told, you're this, you're ugly, you're this. I was called half-breed. I was called all these names. And I ingested that as a reality. I ingested that as my self-image until I did the work, until I talked out a lot of this stuff with somebody who helped me reprocess it, helped me reframe it. And today I have Little, if any of that. Am I a perfect person? Absolutely not. I'm still a work in progress. But what has been extremely minimized is that condition, like Christy said, that learned behavior that says, oh man, you're nothing. You're never going to end up like anything. So one of the things we have to be aware of when we're doing any kind of self-work on ourselves is the importance of talking things out. Now, I know somebody might listening to this might say, oh man, you're a psychologist, so of course you're going to push talking things out because that's how you get paid. Well, you know what? You're right. But in reality, the truth is, give me one example where keeping things inside of you helps you feel better. Give me one example when you're in a conflicted relationship with somebody where you say, you know what, nah, we're not going to talk it out. It'll just get better on its own. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. The reason I do what I do is because I firmly believe that there is power in talking things out with somebody who can help you process it and work on it. So I see a bunch of people saying hello to everybody. Thank you. I appreciate you coming. So we only have a short amount of time because I've noticed it on some of these videos. They're only being watched for a certain amount of time. And I think that's that whole short attention span thing. So I want to touch on a couple of key things. The main thing I want to talk about is the fear of being judged. Okay, this is one of the main reasons why people have negative relationships with themselves, why people beat themselves up. Okay, because we live in this perpetual state of fear of being judged. We have this idea that there's something wrong with us. We have this idea that exactly, it festers. Thank you, Chrissy. It festers in us like an infected wound, this fear of being judged until we start questioning, wait a minute, this person is a perfect person. They have the right to judge me. They have the right to judge me. And when you start realizing that it's imperfect people judging you imperfectly, you start realizing, why am I letting this person's judgment affect me so much? I'll say this again. Perfect. If there was a group of perfect people, they wouldn't be judging you. They wouldn't be judging you. You are judging yourself, which is another thing that we need to be aware of. How projection works, meaning that I'm projecting out onto the world my relationship with myself, meaning that if I'm negatively judging me, then guess what I'm assuming you're thinking? If I hate myself, guess what I'm thinking you're thinking? And that's what we do. We project outwardly how we're feeling within ourselves. So one of the things I work with my clients on is beginning to question how they're projecting, what they're projecting. But this process of working with a psychologist or a counselor is not what people think. I can tell you point blank, Dr. Phil, Laura, all these motivational speakers, all these people who sit around telling you they can change you, just listen to them. Look, I don't want to put anybody down, but the reality of the situation is you can change you. But the problem is you have a set of conditioned beliefs, learned behaviors in you that prevents you from believing that you can even change. And that boils down to one of the main things that we're talking about, our belief system. So part of what cognitive behavioral psychologists, I'm an integrative, but a lot of what I do is cognitive behavioral psychology, helps people look at their beliefs. Remember in the first webinar, we talked about the ABCs of thinking: activating event, belief, consequence. That's in cognitive behavioral. Something activates us. We start believing something about that activating event, and those beliefs have consequences in the form of feelings. Dr. Stephen Walker starts losing his hair. And yes, I used to have beautiful hair. He starts believing what about losing his hair? No woman's going to love me. I'm never going to get a date. I can't deal with this. This is the worst situation in the world. I can't believe this is happening. What does he start feeling? Low self-esteem, depression, anxiety, fear. Why? He believes he can't deal with losing his hair. So one of the main things that will help you immediately start working on your relationship with you, your just beating yourself, putting yourself down, is asking yourself a simple question. What have I done to deserve self-hatred? What have you done? I ask this to my clients all the time. What have you done to deserve hating yourself? And I've worked, trust me, I have worked with the worst of the worst. of what people have done. Not that they're horrible people, that their actions. I've worked in prisons, treatment facilities. I've worked with pedophiles, wife abusers, murderers, rapists, gangbangers, the whole 9 yards. Some people have what I call justifiable self-hate. I'm not going to lie to you. They have reasons to hate themselves. But what have you, there's the camera, what have you done to hate yourself so much? And these are the questions I don't think we're asking ourselves enough. What are we doing? What are we doing to deserve self-hatred? Why aren't we doing that? We live in a culture that stigmatizes working on our thinking and feeling. Think about it a minute. We live in a culture where we're routinely told, is something wrong with you? Oh my God, you see a therapist or a counselor or you work. Who do you know that doesn't have issues? Who do you know that doesn't have issues? Tell me one person you know in your circle of friends, parents, brothers, sisters, siblings, whatever. Who do you know that doesn't have issues? Anybody? Anybody want to throw in an answer? Because the reality is everybody has issues, but nobody's working on them. And then we live in a culture where we drink beer, we drink alcohol, we shop, we take pharmaceuticals, we ingest things to make us feel better, i.e. all kinds of drugs. Why? Simply because we are not working on how we think and feel. So yes, I advocate a process of talking things out. Most people have health insurance. Most people have these policies that have mental health benefits. Do not be afraid to access that. You have the coverage built into your program, into your coverage, excuse me. Feel free to pick up the phone and call somebody who can help you with how you're thinking and feeling. There is no reason in the world why you should be at war with yourself. None. You should not be your own worst critic. It doesn't have to be that way. So, exactly, Christy. Everyone has issues. Wow, Christy's the only one chiming in tonight. Exactly. Everyone has issues. Who doesn't have issues? But we don't talk about it. Instead, we walk around this planet thinking, oh, no, it'll get better. It'll heal on its own. And if you saw the previous webinar on emotional wounds, no, that wound will not heal unless you actively work on it. Like a wound on my arm. If I have a wound on my arm, it is not going to heal if I continue rubbing fecal matter, I'll just say, in it. It's going to continue to get infected. And that's what we're doing all the time when we hate ourselves. A lot of my friends and people who I know ask me, and yes, I charge them for advice. I'm kidding. But they ask me, what do you see as the main problem that people struggle with? And you know what I say? Without a doubt, without missing a beat, self-hatred. Self-hatred is the main problem that people have. The main problem people have is that they hate themselves. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay, excellent question by I won't say the whole name, by Jackie. Dr. Walker, can personal trauma cause a person to develop these self-abusive behaviors? Jackie, abso-blanking-lutely. Not only is trauma, and I'm going to have another webinar on trauma. It's called Going from Post-Traumatic Stress to Post-Traumatic Growth. Because if you looked at one of my previous webinars, I mentioned that a lot of people who go through trauma grow from the trauma. So the question is, can personal trauma develop these self-abusive behaviors? Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the main things I work with people on is how to deal with trauma. Most people have been well, I don't want to say most, but yeah, well, I'll say most. Why not? Most people have had some form of trauma that they're not working on. Let's take sexual abuse, which is a very common thing. Many people have been sexually abused. So what do they have? They have issues with intimacy. They have problems with getting close to people. They have an ability to, they feel dirty. They feel, they have low self-esteem. They don't feel good about themselves. That's all conditioned self-abuse. Trauma, excellent question. Thank you, Jackie. Trauma is one of the main issues that causes self-hatred. Think about it. Think about it for a second. Let's say you were bullied. Let's say, I'll take me as an example, as I talked about before. When I was teased and put down and called all these names. That's a form of trauma. In Florida, we had a girl the other day, not the other day, a few months ago, who jumped off a water tower because she was being bullied. If you don't think bullying is a form of trauma, then I don't know what planet you're living on, because it's a form of trauma. So what happens when we're bullied? What do we start doing? We start bullying ourselves. We start treating ourselves that way. We start treating ourselves the way we're treated. And this is what happens over and over. People treat themselves the way they're treated, and they're not aware of how their trauma is affecting their relationship with themselves. So thank you, Jackie. Excellent question. Absolutely. Can personal trauma, can a traumatic event cause you to develop abusive behaviors? Absolutely. Not only that, it's one of the main causes of that. So if you or somebody you know has gone through a personal trauma and a traumatic event, encourage them to talk it out with somebody trained, somebody who can help them work through it. You can't do it. No offense. I'm not trying to be an elitist, but I can't do brain surgery. I can't repair my knee I can't do that. I am going to go to somebody who knows how to do that. And yes, am I arrogant in saying that I feel a certain ability to help people with their issues? Absolutely. Why? Because people do not need to suffer in silence. People don't need to suffer with these issues. These can be worked on. Hold on, there's another question. How do you work on being so angry and defensive? That's an excellent question. Christy's asking, how do you work on being so angry and defensive? Well, anger and defensiveness basically stems out of a certain belief system that you're carrying around. So let's say I'm angry and defensive about something that someone said. So let's say, I'll use again another example. When I lost my hair, okay, it was a devastating event. And I know women might think, oh, come on, it's just hair, whatever. For a guy, losing his hair, and even for a woman, is a big deal. So whenever somebody made fun of me, I got angry. I got angry and defensive. Because why? I internally was not at peace with, I hadn't accepted that I lost my hair. So as I work through that, people can call me whatever they want. Baldy, Chrome Dome, Crimson Head, Kojak, whatever. I laugh it off. I laugh it off because I'm at peace with that. So a lot of anger and defensiveness, Christy, comes out of you not being settled with what the person is saying about you. So if you're getting angry about something, that's because somewhere within you, you're relating to that in a way that is making you not feel comfortable with it. So in turn, what happens is that anger is coming out of you saying to yourself, I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with this. I feel there's something wrong with me. So if somebody walks up to me and says, hey man, you're a fake, you're a phony. And we're going to talk about that in a bit, the imposter syndrome, because that's a lot of what people go through. They go through this idea that they're fakes and phonies. But if somebody said that to me, hey man, you're a fake, you're a phony, you're this or that, that will only bother me. I will only get defensive if I believe that about myself. And anybody knowing me, and my wife's watching this, anybody knows me knows I'm a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. I have my moments when I am not Mr. Perfect. But you know what? That's okay with me. I don't hate myself about that. I don't call myself fake or phony because I have moments when I'm a human being. So what happens is I'm able to deal with my emotions from a place where I'm not hating myself. And that in of itself helps me to react better out of it. So we get angry and we get defensive because it's striking a button in us that we haven't worked through. We get angry and defensive because somewhere within us, maybe not even somewhere, on the front of our consciousness, we know, yeah, that's the truth. So that's what fosters a lot of anger. And I'm going to do a webinar on anger management and ways to manage your anger. So just getting back to what I was talking about before. Self-hate, if I crystallize it down when somebody asks me, what's the main thing that people struggle with? It's self-hatred. Think about it. Okay, I work with addicts and all kinds of people. Let me ask you a question. How many times do you think I have met a self-loving addict? How many times do you think? Never. Never have I met somebody with depression and anxiety who correspondingly likes themselves, who feels good about themselves. Self-hatred, we like to say, oh, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, without actually thinking about what we're feeling in the moment. Depression and anxiety are the symptoms of self-hatred. They are the symptoms of how you feel about yourself. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Jensen. Absolutely. And shame. Shame is one of the most conditioned negative states of mind we can be in. And I don't want to run down religion and say all religion's bad, because that's not what I believe. But religious conditioning will definitely affect your levels of shame. And I'm not saying religion is bad. I am not in any way saying any of that is bad. But what I am offering is that most of us, as Jensen has pointed out, live in a perpetual state of shame. Exactly. Everyone's chiming in here. None. Exactly. I have never met a self-loving addict. And Jensen hit the nail on the head. Thank you. Shame. Think about why you're ashamed of yourself. Think about it. Think about where you learned to be ashamed of yourself. You know what I was told as a kid? And yes, I do a lot of self-disclosure with my clients. Why? Because it is just the way I am. I was told repeatedly as a kid when I made a mistake, maybe you were too, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You ought to be ashamed of what you did. Now imagine telling that to a kid. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Well, thankfully, I worked through that. And I realized that the only shameful thing I need to feel is when I don't try. That's what people should be ashamed of, is we are not working on how we think and feel. That is what we need to be more aware of. So think about shame, for example. How does shame affect you? Jensen, you want to chime in? Feel free. I'll wait for your response and keep talking. How does shame affect you? Anybody? How does being ashamed affect you? Does shame motivate you? Does shame help you feel more able to do what you want? Absolutely not. In fact, shame is one of the most destructive motivation killers you can find, because shame tells you, oh, there's something wrong with me. Oh, I'm never going to get this. I should be ashamed of myself. I had a client earlier today tell me, I should be over this. I shouldn't be still struggling with this. And I said to her, says who? Where is it written that you're not supposed to still be hurting from what she didn't quite understand as a pretty significant emotional trauma? We tell ourselves that all the time. We tell ourselves all that time, exactly, and Jensen's chiming in, exactly, and guilt. Guilt, shame, and guilt. What do you feel guilty about, Jensen? If I was working with you, I'd ask you straight up, what are you feeling guilty about? What are you beating yourself up over that you should have done or could have done? Feeling shame and guilt is not going to help you get motivated. In fact, it's going to demotivate you. Shame and guilt is one of the most demotivating things we can do to try to motivate ourselves. So Antoinette's saying shame puts you into a state of depression. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's conditioning. It's all conditioned shame. Christy's saying shame makes you feel like you do not matter. Amen, sister. Amen. And that is what again, getting back to what I was saying before, self-hate is one of the most destructive mental conditions, psychological, emotional conditions, and all self-hate is conditioning. You were not born hating yourself. Do not give in to that hate. Think about it for a second, okay? Think about all the prophets who have walked on the planet, the Mandelas, the MLKs, the Gandhis, whoever. How many of them professed hate? How many of them said, yeah, hate. That's a good model. Who are the people that professed hate? Hitlers, Mussolinis, these people who wanted to kill people, put people into concentration camps, make people, those are the people. So every time you hate yourself, guess what philosophy you're perpetrating or perpetuating? I'm not putting this on you. I'm not saying it's all your fault. I'm challenging you to work on what's in your mind. I'm challenging you to work on your feelings. And yes, believe it or not, This is how I do my job. This isn't just I'm putting something on. Any of my clients who know me working with me, this is me in session. Why? Because it is ridiculous that we live in a society where we are so afraid to work on how we're thinking and feeling that we would rather suffer in silence because of shame and guilt, because we were taught by a culture to say there's something wrong with how you think and feel. There is nothing wrong with how you think and feel. Nothing. Yes, exactly. Evil and meanness. People can be very mean. Jackie's saying, and then I am ashamed of that also. It's a downward spiral. Exactly. These are all realities. But let me tell you guys who are listening to this, find a way to talk some of this out. Okay? Find a way to talk some of this out. This stuff exists in us as really like poison. Think about it for a second. You go out to eat. Yes, and I'm a big analogy guy. You go out to eat. You eat something. You start feeling that gurgly, something isn't right. I ate something bad. What's your body going to do? What's the first thing your body going to try to do? Either here or on the other end. It's going to try to get it out. It realizes, I got to get this out of me. What happens if we don't? No, I'm not going to go to the bathroom. No, I'm not going to throw up. The illness, the poison spreads. What do we do with our thoughts and emotions? No. He should know how I feel. No, he doesn't. She doesn't know. Talk it out. Talk things out. Talking, that's why one of my websites is talkthingsout.com, because you have to talk things out of you. If you think reading a book, listening to a motivational speaker, listening to people who tell you they're the expert, they know what's right for you, they don't know what's right for you, okay? You know what's right for you. The reason the self-help books and the motivational speakers work for a little while and then they fade away is because that stuff's still inside of you. And they are not trained. I'm going to do a webinar on the difference between licensed self-help and unlicensed self-help. And to be honest with you, it perplexes me why we allow all these people to write these books when they have zero clinical experience working with people. I'm not going to name anybody because I don't want to get sued. We have people, these motivational speakers saying, oh, I can cure you in 30 minutes. I can post something on Facebook and no. If it worked, we would all be healed. Get this, and I'll wrap this up soon. They did a study of the municipal drinking waters in about 10 different cities. Type in, I'll tell you in a minute what to type in. But the Associated Press did a study of municipal drinking water. Guess what they found in it? Anti-anxiety medication, painkillers, depression medication in our groundwater. Why? They're overly prescribed. People aren't taking them. They're flushing them down, and the water treatment facilities can't process it. So yes, we have a lot of hurting people out there, and a book or a motivational speaker is not going to do it. So Catherine says, and probably growing up with negative parents does not help feeling guilty and shame. Absolutely. Thank you, Christy. No more suffering in silence. Exactly. Absolutely, Catherine. Yes, growing up in our families, and I'm not running down parents. I'm not saying they're all bad. They were conditioned, but yes, we learn how to feel from our parents. And most of us spend our whole life not questioning those lessons. Most of us spend time not looking at why they feel that way. And I'm challenging everybody, please, we need as a culture to move into a reality that says it's okay to hurt. It's okay that I'm in pain, and I'm going to try to get some help for that. Think about suicide. Think about wanting to kill yourself. Look at Robin Williams. This guy is brilliant, funny guy, suffering in silence. Why? Because he probably didn't want people to see how messed up he was. He needed to be the funny guy. He needed to be the guy that everyone loved. And instead of dealing with it and being open and honest, he hung himself. Suicide, I think 35,000 people killed themselves last year. Suicide. This is what's going on in our culture. People are taking out their internal anger, their internal pain on people around them, and self-hate. So, real quick before we end here, mindfulness, being aware of what you're saying to yourself. Self-talk, I talked about that in a previous one. Let me touch on that. What am I saying to myself? What's the internal dialogue that I have going inside of me? Oh man, you're so pathetic. You're so ugly. You're never going to get what you want. You're always going to be, you're never going to have anybody love you. You got to be aware of that self-talk, guys. You have to be aware of that, because that is one of the most destructive things that we do. We have this perpetual stream of negative self-talk, but a lot of what the work. So Jackie's saying, every time I feel like I'm positively dealing with trauma, someone or something tells me I'm not acting in an expected way. Yes, those people in our lives who always tell us, you're not good enough, you're not doing it well enough. Well, let me ask you something, Jackie. The person telling you that person who's telling you that, how perfect are they? How are they working on themselves, Jackie? Why are they pointing the finger at you? What's that thing we learned as kids? When you point one finger, you got 3 other ones pointing back at you. Why? But you know what I'm thinking might be going on with you, Jackie, and I'm not trying to, do this, but my sense is you have a negative relationship with yourself. You believe there's something wrong with you. So when somebody says that to you, that really affects you. It brings you down, because that's connecting with that internal negative state. And I guarantee you this, Jackie, I don't know if you've done any of this work, but if you spend a little time talking some of this stuff out with somebody who can help you process it, help you reframe it, that is going to make you feel better. You're going to begin realizing that whoever is putting their issues onto you, that's their issue. That's them. That's coming from within them. And if you own that, now you got a double whammy. You got a double whammy, because now you're feeling increasingly more negative about you. So, this is the message for tonight, okay? I talked about this in my previous session. Acceptance. You have to accept that you're hurting. You have to. Anything I don't accept, I'm not going to work on. If I am not willing to accept how I'm feeling, I'm never going to work on it. So acceptance is one of the keys. So one more question before we... Exactly. They are not perfect to judge others. Exactly. But we don't ask ourselves that. The people who are judging me negatively, what does that say about them? What's going on inside of them that they have to put me down? When I think about what I went through in high school, and I'm so glad I worked that out. I'm so happy that I talked that out, and I realized, you know what? I was getting my self-image from insecure, scared, hurtful people. And now you know where I get my self-image predominantly? From inside. And we're going to talk about that, and I'll touch on that real quick, because this is an important piece. In psychology, there's this thing called internal locus of control and external locus of control. And what that basically means is we either get our sense of self-identity, our sense of who we are outside of us, external locus of control, or internally, okay? It's either comes from outside or inside. Now, let me draw another analogy. Let's say as a psychologist, I have a predominantly externalized locus of control. So tell me what the problem is with this. I need everybody. I think I saw 9 people today. I need all my 9 clients today to tell me, you know what, Dr. Walker, Steven, whatever they call me, you're the best, man. You're the best psychologist I've ever met on the planet. I have never met anyone like you. Suppose I needed that. Suppose I needed people to tell me that. Where's my self-belief there? It's in your hands. And what's the problem with that? What happens when you tell me I'm an idiot, or you don't come back, or you say, listen, or whatever happens, which, by the way, thankfully doesn't happen that much, but then where's my belief in my ability? I have to generate my self-effectiveness internally. I have to feel effective from within me in order to be effective. Because if my external locus of control is so great that I need other people to make me feel good about myself, then guess what's going to happen? Jackie said it. Let me read Jackie's question here or post. Where is it? Here it is. She said, every time I feel I am positively dealing with my trauma, someone or something tells me I am not acting in an expected way. So she comes down. Jackie, with all due respect, thank you for posting that. You got to bring some of that inside of you. You got to be able to say to Jackie, you know what, Jackie, you're trying, you're doing what you can, you're working on it. I'm working on it. Maybe you don't feel you're working on it enough. Maybe you don't. One of my next seminars is going to be, or webinars is going to be on, I call it inner child abuse. And I've never seen this anywhere out there, but I actually, again, one of my feeder domains is innerchildabuse.com, because that's what we do to ourselves. We abuse that inner little person. I used to be horribly abusive to myself. Why? Because I learned that my confidence was outside of me. Self-hatred is a learned belief. It's conditioning. You need to identify it as that in order to begin chipping away at it. Okay, so I had a lot more to go over tonight, but we're coming up on 45 minutes, and I do appreciate everybody attending this. One of the last things I will touch on real quick is perfectionism. Okay, perfectionism is one of the main causes of depression in our culture. They just came out with a study, and I think I mentioned this before. People are proud. Hey, I'm a perfectionist. Hey, I'm a perfectionist. Well, you know what? And they did it. I think they polled, I don't know, 400 people or whatever. I can look it up. But guess what else perfectionists identified as? Depressed, unhappy, never feeling fulfilled. And I guarantee you that if you spend your time in a perpetual state of beating yourself up, making yourself feel inferior, you're going to feel worse and worse. So again, thank you. This was our most well-attended webinar. Please forward this to other people. Post this on your Facebook page. Get the word out. I guarantee you, if we as a culture, as human beings, if we were as proud of working on our mental health as we are as working on our physical health, we would have half the problems we have. We would have people going around going, wait a minute, why am I, oh yeah, that's right, I'm hating this green person because I was taught that. No, that's not okay with me. No, that's what mindfulness does. Mindfulness helps us be aware of how we're thinking and feeling. So please use those health insurance benefits. Love him or hate him, President Obama has taken the cost of therapy and forced it down to make it affordable for everybody. Use your benefits. Call somebody. Work it out. If you've got some trauma, if you've got some unhealed emotional wounds, work on them. Be conscious of what you're telling yourself. But above all, focus on how your conditioning is affecting how you think and feel. So thank you for coming. What I'm thinking about doing actually is I'm going to be doing these every Wednesday at 8 o'clock East Coast time. Okay? I think it's best if I just lock in a time for my schedule and people's schedule to know that every Wednesday at 8, we're going to be working on a different aspect of the way we think and feel so that we can begin, at least the people who are watching can begin working on it. Because I guarantee you this again, and not to quote Michael Jackson, but if we are working on ourselves, if we are proud of the fact, hey, I attended a webinar last night on hating myself and beating myself up. Yeah, did you? What did you do? Oh, you got drunk? Oh, okay. Oh, you went shopping? Oh, okay. Oh, you got into a fight with your husband or wife? Oh, okay. Well, you know what I did? I worked on how I thought and felt. After the webinar was over, I started thinking about, wow, why do I hate myself so much? I mean, is that necessary? Have I really done anything to deserve the levels of self-hate I feel? So anyway, thank you for attending. Thank you everybody for asking questions. This was great. I'll see you next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Please, once you see this posted, please share it so that people can start seeing that this guy's a psychologist and he's just like me. There's no different. This idea that, oh, I'm in therapy. Trust me, there's nothing. Change the word therapy to working on yourself, and you'll find a new way of thinking and feeling. And if you really stop and think about it, you know what? Working on yourself is something we should all do. So before we, thank you. You're welcome, Catherine. Thank you for attending. Thank you, everybody. Jackie, thank you for attending. All I'm going to say to you guys is this. You've done nothing to deserve hating yourself. If you were abused as a kid or you're in an abusive relationship, that's about them. That's about them. It's not about you. Don't internalize someone else's issues and make yourself feel bad about yourself based on another person's perception. Work it out. Talk it out. Remember the analogy of eating. Get it out of you. You've got to get this, I don't want to say the SH word. You got to get this stuff out of you, and then you're going to start feeling better. Okay? So great chatting with you. I'm going to post what the next webinars are going to be on, and we'll keep working on it. But seriously, and if anyone's out there having desperate thoughts, wanting to hurt themselves, please access some help, okay? Suicide is one of the most destructive things to people around you, okay? You have done nothing to deserve the death penalty. Nothing. You have built up a negative relationship with yourself, and that is causing you to hate yourself. And self-hate is one of the most destructive things we can do. Okay? So see you next week. Ask me questions, post anything you want. If I can give you some advice on how to find somebody or how to get your process going, feel free. Thanks for coming, and let's not give into that self-hate. Okay, guys, take it easy. Let me try that again.